Hello, everybody. How are you? I am Dr. Alicia with Coaching with Dr. Alicia. I want to welcome all of you all to our very first episode on today in September. It is Mental Health Monday, and each week we're going to tackle all of these issues that I think affect us. But what we're going to do is we're going to talk about these issues in a way that helps to enlighten your mental health. And I'm bringing experts in every single Monday. We're going to tackle issues. If you have certain issues that you want to talk about, be sure to contact me at coachingwithdralicia.com. You can email me at Alicia at coachingwithdralicia if there's topics that you'd like for us to address regarding mental health. But today we are going to talk about how to be demure and mindful and cutesy when you're at work every single day. All of us have work. It could be virtual work, it could be in-person work. You always want to make sure that you're putting your best foot forward and tackling some of these issues. And it's just interesting, like imagine yourself, you're navigating a workplace where sometimes for us, you have to deal with microaggressions and subtle forms of discrimination as part of your daily experience, on top of being responsible for all of the activities and all of the responsibilities that you have at work. And so I think these interactions can often feel like a delicate balance, because you have to learn how to stand up for yourself in a way that continues this level of professionalism, but you also need to maintain your composure. And so navigating how to talk and how to stand up for yourself is so important, not only for your mental health, but it's also important in making sure that all of the gifts that you are gifted in life, you're able to translate that into the work that you do every day. So today we're going to explore about how we can mindfully maintain healthy boundaries in the workplace. We're going to talk about mindfulness practices that can help us maintain some balance, because us as Black folks, we need this. And today I have two really esteemed therapists with me. I have Paris Williams. She's a therapist in New York, you guys. She specializes in anxiety disorders. Hello, Paris.
Hello.
I also have Felice Hightower-Britt, who is in North Carolina, and she specializes in anxiety, depression. She also works with a lot of trauma, and she works with couples too. So welcome, Paris and Felice.
Thank you.
Hello, hello.
Yeah, so let's dive right on in. I want to start with you, Paris. What does it mean to be demure when you're at work, especially in the context of some of us having to deal with some of these challenges of microaggressions and stereotypes, and dealing with it in a way where we can positively put ourselves forward in a professional way? What would you say?
Sure, yes. Thank you, Dr. Alicia. So demure in my case and how I see it is just how to just learn how to be, I guess, meek or just kind of controlled in the environment that you don't really have much control over. Learning how to recognize your space, that this is not about personal, taking things personal. This is just about learning what your job is and learning what to do with it. It's a lot of awareness and understanding how to work with certain people around you. In a nutshell, that's my version of how demure is in this case.
Oh, excellent. Thank you. Let's go on. I think, yeah, I really think you're right. It's about, it really is. It's about adopting an approach to help in some of these contexts to be to encourage respect in the work environment, and to turn some of these and to have a positive influence on our colleagues, and to make sure we put our best foot forward. Felice, how would you add to what Paris talked about?
Well, it's so good to be here, and thank you, Dr. Alicia. And it's good to be in a space with you too, Paris. So I looked the word up, right? Because I know that these millennials and Gen Z is their fact checkers, right? So they just don't want to share us our opinion. They want to know the truth and what's the fact. So I looked up what the word demure means, and it means it refers typically to a woman who is reserved, modest, and shy in behavior or appearance, and often suggests a quiet, polite, and understated demeanor. So if that is the meaning, then y'all are gonna have to forgive me, right? And give me some grace, because I don't think I subscribe to that word for women in the workplace. And I think it totally undervalues our authenticity and what we bring to the table. And what do I mean by that? I mean, especially as African American women too, and women, in general, we're always supposed to have all these different representatives, as if what we bring as ourselves to work and to any other platform is not enough. And we spend a lot of our time at work. And so if this is the meaning, and if this is what people are going to fact check as far as us in the workplace, I think it underestimates women in the workplace and us being enough as who we are. So I don't know. I take issue with the word demure.
I like that you broke down the definition of demure, and I'm thinking about how my basic foundation at work is really I'm pretty even. I have just my own personality. I'm pretty positive at work and pretty bubbly. However, I always come into a situation where I'm uncomfortable, where I feel like someone is taking out their issues of Black women on me. And I'm always stuck in that moment where I'm like, okay, I'm from Gary, Indiana. Do I pull out Gary, Indiana on these folks? Do I do that? Or do I deal with it in another way? Because I'm like, we don't want to go back to Gary response. And it's so stressful for me, because on some level, I carry with me this idea that I don't want to be a stereotype, this angry Black woman. But at the same time, I really feel like you're not treating me the way I need to be treated. And I'm treating everybody nicely. At least I'm thinking of it. Now, I do want to come across at work as being teachable. I want to come across as people can have, if I happen to say something that bothers you, I would love for somebody to come to me and talk about it. I'm not going to be angry with that person, but I always feel like I'm getting pigeonholed into these stereotypes of Black women. Either you're angry Black woman, or am I supposed to be cheerful 100% of the time? I'm a human being. And so it's just always an extra layer being Black, and then an extra layer being a woman. Where am I supposed to be? I do want to be demure in the sense where reserved, in the sense where I don't want to be reactive at work. I want to act, but I don't want to be reactive where I'm just going off on people every day. But at the same time, you have to set boundaries. And Paris, I'll bring it back to you. How do we, if we're facing microaggressions and we're stopping and we're thinking about it, how do we combat these sort of things so that we're not compromising our professionalism and then getting labeled as this angry Black woman? Where no, don't do that. Like, what would you suggest?
Okay, so what comes to mind for me is, first of all, recognizing who we're talking about, right? We're talking about work-related things. So one thing to understand, the job and let's say your boss, your coworkers, your colleagues, they're not family, they're not friends. They're not really going to be loyal to you, unfortunately. They may want to be loyal to you. They may say they want to be loyal to you. But at the end of the day, there is still a level of, they're trying to do their job. So your part is to really do your job, or I'm sorry, they're doing their job, so you're supposed to do your job. So part of what is really more meaningful to look at is trying to figure out, well, what am I supposed to do? Like, how am I honoring my boundaries? And part of it is just knowing what you came to work to do. I'm here to do a job. And part of it is to not take things personally. A lot of us go into these workspaces looking at other people saying, hey, I'm noticing you did this for this person, you did this for that person. Why can't you do that for me? And a lot of people, unfortunately, and I can say in my caseload as well with the clients I work with, they stick in that thought process of like, why are they doing this? Like, why can't they do this for me? So number one idea is to really understand, again, this is a matter of this is a matter of work. So don't take things personally. So in that space, learning to say, what is my responsibility? Again, sticking to that space. And then minding your business. That's another piece of what I think a lot of us get into, trying to people please. There is a difference between kind and nice. And I think that's a meaningful piece. We could be nice to people and just please and go through everything. Or we can be kind. Kind is an area of honoring boundaries, saying, knowing your limitations, knowing the things that you should and should not be doing, and really expressing that out loud. But with kindness, not being rude, and then also just kind of following it next.
Oh my God, that makes such good sense about being kind and nice. I think, like, when you were talking and you mentioned the whole thing about loyalty and then the reality of it all, it's okay. I keep talking about myself, but I have this normal default to trust people. It's just like I don't see the world as like untrustworthy. You know, I have this normal default, and I think sometimes it can make me I can be kind of unrealistic in that, you know, like I just want to believe that we could work together collaboratively and it's okay. And I always get, even though I know people are telling me who and what they are, sometimes I want to hope for the best in other people. And I do want to, in my work environment, I do want to, outside of the professionalism, I do see my colleagues as people who are friendly. Like I want to have, that's so important to me. And I hear what you're saying about loyalty. Like there's so many times where I feel like people have, and a lot of people I talk to have felt like somebody went behind their back and said something, or there's an email thread that came out that they weren't a part of and they feel excluded, or they just feel like, you know, when somebody's been talking about you, when you're not around, you can just feel it. And it causes so much tension in the workplace. And, you know, whenever I feel that way, I do automatically kind of straighten up a little bit and not, you know, not get real cutesy with people at work. And so I think that's really good. Like being kind is being able to set boundaries, where being nice means there's no boundaries at all.
Mm-hmm.
That is really good. Felice, how about you? What are some ways where you feel like we can set these healthy boundaries in the reality of the workplace setting? What would you have to say to that?
Well, you know, follow your value system, right? What are your values? Is it respect? Is it is it loyalty? Is it integrity? Because you want to operate from a place of your value systems, right? And that's always going to work because values are fundamental and they're foundational. But I think that you have to be confident and secure in who you are in that space. I think a lot of times we give in to microaggression and stuff is because we start to get insecure. And there's no need to be insecure because if you weren't supposed to be there, you wouldn't be. And so you have to know that you belong in that space and that you have every right to be there. And so it's okay to stay in your lane. What does that mean? That means that if something doesn't come across your path, it didn't. Please know that whatever's supposed to come across your path, you're going to know. You're going to find it out. Especially if you're operating from a space of good energy, right? Because your energy is always going to surround you and protect you. And then you have to practice emotional detachment. A lot of the things that we experience in the workplace has nothing to do about us. It's always about that other person and what they're experiencing. And sometimes those people want to bring us into that space, but it's really not about us. It's about them. And when you come down to their level, you actually join them in their misery. So you always got to go high and just stay secure in who you are, what you bring to the table. And then you have to start creating meaningful relationships in the workplace, right? And knowing, right, that the possibility for mistrust, backstabbing will always be a possibility. But I love the fact, Dr. Alicia, that you go into this planet trusting people. that's a good thing. And you shouldn't have to change that just because other people aren't trustworthy. There's nothing wrong with you looking at the world the way that you do. And we need more people like that who don't have a tainted view of their world. So I think you're totally fine. And I think I tell my clients all the time, keep your eye on the prize. At the end of the day, cut the check, right? 2 weeks. Is that check going to hit my bank account? I don't care what y'all do, how you do it, just cut the check, right? And so if you keep your eye on the prize, and what does that mean? That means that do you have goals that you need this job for to fulfill? Is it a house you're trying to buy? Is it some daycare, another school you're trying to put your child in? You don't have time for the little things when you keep your eye on the vision. And you do what you came and signed the contract to do, and that was to do and give your best. And you do that, and you let your work speak for itself.
I think that is so great, to be confident and secure. And what you're saying makes perfect sense. And, you know, I don't know, for me and for a lot of other people, when I first start a job, I'm really insecure at that point, you know, because you need a lot of help. Like, when people first start a job, they're very needy. And I don't know what that's like for people to feel needy. It's like you have to be in constant communication with your supervisor to make sure you're doing everything okay. You need to be open for feedback to say, wait, how am I doing? How's it going? You have to kind of get in this existing work scenario that's been going on long before you started working there. And here you are plucked into this, pushed right on into this dynamic of this work, and you need to kind of like tease it out and try to find out where you fit. And that could be very anxiety provoking, and you're normally insecure when you're first starting a job, but hopefully you have the right kind of supervisor and manager that understands this and they can help you along the way and not weaponize it. Like I have actually witnessed and seen this happen on the job. So very good, Felice. Anyway, I want to just reset here for a second. Welcome everybody in. Dennis, how you doing? Dennis loves us. Dennis says, what does he say? Elders told me to trust my gut based on the ratio of the quality of the people I interact. Yeah, you got it. And this has happened during the interview process. You need to really, really pay attention before you even step into and make a decision to enter into a work environment. You need to trust your gut and get a good feel for the type of work environment you're in. And Dennis also says, thank you for your comments. Assertiveness may work, judging from your response. I think he's talking about how to be assertive in a way where it's not aggressive. We always talk about the difference between being assertive and aggressive. And so I thank you, Dennis. If you have any questions, up to you, Dennis. If you have any questions, you guys, you can put it in the chat and we can address it. You got 3 licensed therapists right here, ready to talk to you about any of the issues that you have going on at work. And a little glitchy here, but we still keep it going. But if you have any questions, if there's anything happening at work, of course, just a disclaimer, this is not therapy. We're not curing anything, and we're definitely not diagnosing anything, but we can always help you. If you got something going on at work that's very stressful, you can put a comment in, and it definitely has an impact on our mental health. And I'll throw this out to either one of you, Felice or Paris. How can you, when you start to have workplace issues and it starts to become overwhelming, what do you suggest that people do to maintain a nice their mental health in the midst of work relationships when things start to go awry? So what would you say? We can go to either one of you, Paris or Felice, about what you would tell everybody that's tuning in today about what to do, how we can approach possible mental health issues on the job.
I don't mind. I'll go first.
Okay.
First of all, take breaks, because sometimes people, they get into a work mode and they don't look up. They don't come up for air. And when I say take a break, take a real break. Like, Don't go to the water fountain and start gossiping. Like literally go outside, get some vitamin D, taking some deep breaths, which you should be doing throughout the day anyway. Get your squeezy ball, be squeezing on things. Have your post-it notes of affirmations that help you to stay mindful about, stay focused on your self-care. I would also suggest that you stay present, right? In your thoughts, and what you're doing. Don't go too far in the past. Don't think about conversations, shoulda, coulda, woulda. Don't go too far out thinking about, trying to have a plan B, C, or D, or E for something. Just stay in your now and be mindful and stay present. And then I would suggest doing some self-care. Like when you leave the job, strongly consider, like, what are you doing to take care of yourself? Like, are you getting massages? Are you exercising? People don't recognize that your diet and nutrition plays a huge part in your mental well-being. How are you eating? Because if what you're eating isn't supporting your mental health in a positive way, it's making you fatigued, right? If you're fatigued and you're lacking energy, your capacity is low. What does that mean? You have a low tolerance level for any buffoonery. Everything will just irritate you. You become easily frustrated. You won't be able to hone in and focus. And then you'll pay attention to the nonsensical. And so there's so many things that we need to do about our self-care and how we prioritize ourselves first so that we can show up and be able to manage a toxic work environment. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to manage it well.
What you're saying, Felice, makes such great sense because you're talking about emotional and psychological boundaries. You're talking about when you leave the job, you can't bring the job with you mentally. And nothing is worse than people who send me emails 10 o'clock at night, midnight. I'm like, child, you need to, could you please listen, do not do that. Like when you clock out, I don't clock out. I work at a university, so there really is no clocking out. But there's certain times where I am not checking. At one point I removed the app on my phone that allowed me to check my emails because I noticed the students were emailing me and all of this, and I was emailing them back. So they're like, oh, she checks her emails in the middle of the night. And so they were emailing me back. Finally, I said, this is too much. I have to mentally, emotionally separate myself from this job because students are needy, right? And so I did that, and I thought they were going to give me terrible teaching recommendations. And I thought everything was going to go down south, and it didn't. Like they were like, oh, okay. They didn't really need a response right away. So I learned quickly that if you set boundaries, other people respect your boundaries, and they're like, she'll check it in the morning. Yeah. And, that's something that you need to keep in mind. So, Paris, how about you? Weigh in on this. Felice has brought up some really good strategies to maintain balance and mental health. You have anything that you want to contribute?
Absolutely. First of all, Felice, you took a lot of my answers, if not most of them, 99% of them, but we could add a couple a little bit more in between. It just more a little bit added to that is kind of going with the route of self-care, journaling. I think that's a big space for a lot of us in the work environment don't really have that outlet to really talk, right? So when we think about what we're noticing in front of us, all we do is hold it in, get really angry, and then just before you know it, as you mentioned, it will come out in different spaces, right? That even within the environment, like, look, I'm tired, eventually all that could potentially come out, right? So self-care is super important by journaling, of course. Therapy, right? Like seeing a therapist. I'm located in New York State, so if that's one thing that, and Felice in North Carolina, like those are the spaces where, really allowing an outlet, and of course, outlet could go with talking. It can also go with just physical sides, which kind of what Felice touched on. And just even like an active activity, like something that requires movement, and again, that's how the brain works. It needs an outlet somewhere, So yeah, I would definitely contribute to all of those things, even a friend. But with friends too, we have to really aware that some people don't have that emotional capacity to take on all of these things, and unfortunately, that could also create some limitations of how we want to really show our outlet, right? So yeah, and that's what I have for now.
Yeah, that is really good. Mind you, okay, so when I first started at my university, I was the I would help students get their internships, right? So y'all know about the internship process. All therapists were students and had to learn and practice the skills that they learned, right? So we would spend time journaling with them. And I encourage all the students to keep a journal with them. I have a teaching journal that I do professionally. Every month or so, I'll write in there things that I've learned about myself, because I'm required to do a reflective essay to keep my job, I guess, every so many years. But you're required to kind of go through this review process as a professional. And one thing that I really would get with a lot of the students, and this probably applies to all of us, was that they were afraid of criticism. They were afraid that that the person who they needed to impress, the person who they were really interested in, and the person who was evaluating them would criticize them in a way. And we would get to a lot of that in class. But I recommend all of us that are listening today, think about what happens to you when you know you need to be evaluated. And are you open for evaluation? Are you saying, listen, tell me how I can do things better? Or does it bring up something for you? And we spend some time in class discussing how it's reminiscent of being criticized when you were younger. Like, how could you not bring that forward and sometimes transfer some of those feelings into a boss, somebody who's above you? And there are people who, a lot of entrepreneurs, y'all know who y'all are. Y'all can't take any reporting to any boss, because there's so much, there could be some trauma there or some really hurt feelings related to being evaluated. So it's a double-edged sword, because a lot of us have been working for a while. We are supervisors, and sometimes we mess up with how we deal with people who work under us. And I love what you're saying here. Felice, do you have anything that you want to contribute to this issue of being criticized and feeling a certain way about that?
So I think another word for criticize could be positive feedback, right? And so one of the things that we could learn as far as communicating in the workplace is that, and I learned because I was in corporate America for 15 years, is that you always give two forms of positive feedback and then show them the negative. So just saying, you do this really well, and we love that you do this. We would like to see more of this. So what is this? You let in with some positivity, showing where there was room for improvement on the back end. So what does that do? That makes sure that you set the space for people to be able to receive information that may not necessarily feel so good. But then you also preface it, and you want to hire people that know in order to grow, you got to have feedback. So you want to have people on your team that knows that feedback is fundamental, is data, right? Because at the end of the day, in order for you to keep a job, you got to have some good data and making sure that the team is able to move forward. And if you're lacking in a certain space, or you need some more support in a certain space, you will want people to be able to tell that to you, so that the team looks good and that they're doing what they were called to do. And so there's a way that you can go about being able to give feedback so that people are able to receive it.
Yeah, I love that. It's really mindful. I mean, that's where the mindfulness and the demure comes into, when you have to give feedback to somebody and you have to take it out of the person as an individual and say, here's what we would like to develop in you. Here's how can we support you to do these things better, because we know you have it in you. We invested in you. We've hired you. We want you to do well. And we want to invest in you. That's the type of work environment you want to look for, because you're not supposed to know you're supposed to know what you need to know basically for the position that you're in, but every company is different. And so you need to ask for and want to have support so that you can do your job effectively and grow in your job. The idea of it is to be promoted, it's to be supported. I would love to get back to, and I really feel like employers run away from this, developing you. You know, they used to ask you, where do you want to be in 5 years, and work with employees to make sure they get there. Because remember, this whole thing after COVID, this whole quiet quitting was such an issue, because people were just like, I don't see my company investing in me. I'm just going to do the bare minimum, and I'm just going to just do what I can to get by. And I don't think that that's
Dr. Alicia, they're supposed to
way
be
to do things.
They're supposed to be still doing that, like developing people. I mean, that's how they're attracting people to the organization, by saying that they would develop them. But I think what's happening too is that people are quitting. And so you've got less people doing the work. And so how do I develop somebody when I only got 2 people on the team? And they're requesting that I still get the same amount of work out that I did when I had 10 people on the team. And so it's really hard to get in developmental time when you don't have staff. And so, you know, and that's not that's not the staff's problem, but somehow, some way, you got to work out and find a way to keep people in their seats so that you can do what you said you would do and promise to do, to get them to be a part of the job or the team.
That is really great. What you're saying makes good sense. It's like, we need to be able in our positions to see it from everybody's point of view. Like, okay, if I was my boss, how would I look at the situation? If I was this person, how would I look at it? Everybody has a stake in things. Everybody has a perspective. And we get so bogged down in our one little narrow position that we do need to, what you're saying, Felice, is step back and look at the big picture and see, wait a minute, we just had employees quit. How can I now pull up my sleeves and say, you know what? I do want to help, you know, in a way that's healthy, right? You want to set boundaries around understanding what the gaps are in your employer, but it's still important to recognize the positions of everybody. Paris, did you want on this?
Oh, I think you asked, did I want to comment on it? Is that the question? That is it, right? Okay, thank you, Felice. Yeah, no, I mean, I guess, you know, part of what we're talking about is kind of going back to, like, you know, and I guess we're talking about this in the perspective of a entrepreneur, right, who has staff. And in that aspect, yeah, a lot of it is just, what we don't want is burnt out employees. So learning how to really navigate that space in the event, you know, and even ourselves, you know, as solo practitioners, as we are as therapists, but as well as people who have just in yourself, learning where your limitations are. And even, I think Dr. Alicia said this, which is really meaningful, the empathy of all of the sides, like really knowing where everyone is coming from and knowing where limitations are best in. A lot of that has to do with talking to the employees. And I mean, obviously you can't honor everything, but at the same time, it's important to have conversations about where people are, how they feel about things, how you getting honest with self to recognize what's helpful for you, what's helpful for them, where, again, I keep using the word limitation, there's also known as boundaries. That's probably the core of what we're talking about, honoring boundaries for self and others.
And accountability.
Very good, very good. Go ahead. Mm-hmm.
And accountability. Like, at some point too, even though we understand, you know, you have to hold people accountable. So if you know that you're supposed to be getting developed, then you need to be developed, because they can walk you out and say you haven't been doing your job and didn't develop you. Didn't come sit with you and say, hey, at your 3-month mark, this is what we're seeing, and this is what we need from you, and this is what we expect. And so you need to be able to hold your leadership accountable to what they said they were going to do, to make sure that you are the employee that they claim they want you to be and expect you to be.
That's excellent. So I see some people here in the chat. Hey, everybody, type in your work issues. We got another 5 or 6 minutes left. You got 3 licensed therapists, Black female licensed therapists who's holding it down. Come on with your questions. Somebody talked about McDonald's. David is here saying, hello, everyone. I know the feeling about the workplace. I work at McDonald's. It's toxic to my well-being. Okay. All right, Paris, we'll start with you. Give David some helpful tips here on what he can do.
Yes. So the big M, mindfulness, being mindful. I think that's like the best option we can work with when we're dealing with things we cannot control. That means people, situations around us. So, David, I would suggest, as well as to the audience here, is really stopping and reflecting and just simply stop, right? So, when we think of mindfulness, what that ultimately means is being in the present. I remember Dr. Felice said this, or Miss Felice mentioned about how the fact that we're sitting there in the moment and really learning what's going on. How are we feeling? What are we thinking? What's happening around us? It's the practice of stopping. What we're also doing is also when we notice things around us, try not to judge it. So when we're looking at ourselves, not like, oh man, I'm angry. Why am I angry? I'm so mad being angry. No, it's I'm angry. This is good information for me. This is good information to know this. What do I do next? What I do next is if I'm angry, and again, this is all part of the mindfulness thought process, right? Mm-hmm. If I'm angry, does that mean I spaz out on the next person? Or do I allow myself to say, you know what, I need a couple minutes to kind of walk away? Now, one thing about mindfulness is it's considered a practice, right? So when we think of practicing, practice literally is just a constant repetition of the same thing. So, it's not something that we could just automatically happen right away. It's going to be very difficult because our immediate reaction is to react, right? If we're angry, if we're, as you mentioned, feeling toxic or having a lot of toxic things around us, we want to react. That's the first inclination, right? That's the first thing we want to do. But the idea is, and again, it sounds so simple and yet so difficult, but it is a matter of stopping and then looking at self, and again, as much as we can be present-minded and separate, take space as much as we can. If it's a minute, 2 minutes, doctor, or I keep saying doctor, I think that's what I think is supposed to happen in the future. You never know. But in this aspect of breathing, breathing, allowing yourself to just really calm down and just, it's a matter of self. So that's how I see it there.
I love that. Paris is saying, be in it, but not of it. You at McDonald's, get into a mindful place. You flipping burgers, no matter what you're doing, just mindfully do it in a way. You're in it, but you don't have to be of it, and you can protect yourself. And you have to meditate in that moment. So she's talking about anger. You mad. You in this toxic workplace, and you mad. And it's a great way a healthy way to show your anger. Healthy anger is so beautiful. And Baby Love is saying, David, pray and start looking for another job. I love the prayer because to me, prayer is nothing but mindfulness in action, right? What would you have to say to that, Felice, before we start wrapping up?
So I think, first of all, David, I just want to say thank you for going to work every morning, because I know I stop by Mickey D's for my coffee every day. So thank you for what you do. And I think it's important to say that to you because you matter. And so I need you to know that when you go into the workplace, no matter what you're experiencing with some of your coworkers, you matter to the customer. Because I thank you for showing up and making it possible for me to get my morning brew. Like, that's for real. And so I would suggest to you that you just take some really good deep breaths, because what deep breathing does is it gives you a reset, and it gives you some time to not only to kind of calm down, but to make sure you don't do something that you're not willing to pay for in the future. And also be mindful of the fact that there's always a way that you can look at that situation, that you don't always have to look at it as a negative. Yes, those people are positive, but remember, it's not about you. A lot of times the negativity that you're experiencing at work is about that person. That person is possibly going through something, and you're the only person that's in their path that they get to express what's really going on the inside. So it's not about you. Take a deep breath. And I just want to say thank you for showing up. Thank you for showing up to work for people like me. We appreciate you. I know I do.
Yeah, I appreciate it too, because if I don't have my coffee in the morning, everybody gonna be upset.
McDonald's has a good cup of coffee. All you Starbucks people, please stop. McDonald's, yeah.
McDonald's got way better coffee than Starbucks. Yes, expensive, overpriced coffee. That's crazy. Anyway, okay, so I just want to thank you guys, I want to thank everybody for coming in for Mental Health Monday. It's every Monday, you guys, same time. And if you have stuff going on with you, tune in. You're always going to have licensed therapists here giving you free tips. We should be charging y'all, but we're not. And so today, I took notes. I took notes today. Today, we have talked about how to be demure and mindful at work. We have talked about the definition of demure. Okay, we got some issues with the definition. Do you need to be reserved? Do you need to be shy and modest? No, sometimes you need to like show boundaries and be assertive. We have talked about the reality of being loyal. Okay, don't expect everybody at your job to be your friend. Okay, but you can be friendly, understand those boundaries. We have talked about the difference between being kind and nice. That's really wonderful. And we've also talked about even when you're starting a job, you need to be competent and secure. Insecurities will always feed into a mental health issue, right? Be open for suggestions. Be teachable. Yes, Sister Felice got some wisdom. Look at this, instant rewards said this. She got lots of wisdom, y'all. And look for meaningful relationships, you know, in your workplace. There are some individuals, not everybody gotta like you, but there are some opportunities. I talked about, and myself in Paris, we recommend that you keep a journal and you reflect in that journal. I love that. I had students do it. We had some breakthrough moments in class talking about work-related issues because we are socializing all of these people into the profession. And so they need to be able to talk about this. We also talked about be in it, but not of it, with potential toxic relationships and healthy anger. If you're mad at somebody, how can you talk about it and connect with that anger in a way that's healthy? Sometimes you need to quit. Sometimes you need to pack up and start looking for another way. Maybe that anger is mobilizing you to do something else, but sometimes that anger, you need to keep it all into perspective, right? So while we head out, last words, let everybody know where we can find you guys. We'll start with you, Paris. Tell everybody where they can find you, and last pieces of advice for people dealing with work-related issues.
Okay, hello. So my practice is in New York State. I'm a licensed therapist that has mostly virtual sessions. So anyone resides in New York, I could definitely see you. I also have an office space. I can also, you know, if you need in person, which in person is really meaningful. So we can connect in that way. You can email me. My email is right here, pariswilliams@gmail.com, or you can go to a specific website. I have a couple, so let me just just a quick thing is just Googling my name, Paris Williams, and then going to New York. Like, make sure you put New York and then Paris Williams, and my website would show up as well. So it's been a pleasure to be able to talk to you all, and thank you all for listening to me, and I hope to hear from you all soon.
All right. Okay, Felice, how about you? Any parting thoughts and how we can get a hold of you in North Carolina?
Please know I totally understand the complexity of a toxic workplace, because how do you manage that knowing that you got bills to pay and needs that you need met and still manage your mental health and well-being? So please, I would love to help you with that. I am Felice, the Be Big Coach. So if you go to my website, it's www.thebebigcoach.com. But you can email me. I'm Felice@thebebigcoach.com. That's my email. I'm on Instagram and Facebook as Be Big Coach. I'm also known as Real Talk with Felice. So please DM me, go out there or schedule a 15-minute free consultation with me and see how I can help you. I do sliding scale for those who don't have insurance. And so just know that these women and myself on this panel, we are here to help. And help is real. And there's nothing wrong with getting help. The only thing wrong is when you know that you're in a deficit, or you know that you're struggling and you don't get the help you need. That's the sin. So get your help, right? So that you can live this best life because you deserve it.
Yeah, that's really great. Thank you, you guys. I mean, I really think that asking for help is strength. It takes a lot of strength to ask for help, and we are slowly getting to the point where we're removing some of the stigma of asking for help and getting help. And I just want to thank the two of you, Paris and Felice, for helping me today, my inaugural Mental Health Monday. Y'all tune in every Monday, same time, same channels. I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what channels I go live on, whichever I feel like it works. But anyway, I thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you, everybody. Be sure to hit the like button. Y'all share this with y'all relatives and y'all friends and people you know having issues. Share it with them. Help is out there. Help is available. Oh, and if you want to work with me, there's my website right there, coachingwithdralicia.com. Y'all can find me on Instagram at coachingwithdralicia. Bye, everybody.